Hi. Can you get your video figured out? Well, it's really nice to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. So I've been doing this little series where I chat with plant buyers, but also growers on what's exciting them. So maybe their top 5 to 6 picks. So I figured I'd give you a ring, and I know we've been trying, I want to get down to Florida. I'll let you know if that actually happens. But in the interim, I would love to hear some of your picks.
Cool.
Yeah. So what would be your first one?
Well, you know what I'm really liking right now? Let's see if I hold that up there. That's Anthurium Selby Silver.
Oh, so it's a cultivar.
Size. And it makes like a clump, but the leaves don't get much bigger than that. And, I love huge leaves, but also, for people that are growing indoors and they want different textures and colors, sometimes you don't have the space for something so huge. So I'm really liking this guy this year because they've been so easy for me to grow, and it makes a nice full pot, and it's just such a cute little thing. Most of the stuff I grow eventually, if it's outside, is going to be, a 2-foot leaf, and not everybody has space like that. So I'm really liking that little guy.
Yeah. I like how thick the silver venation is on that leaf. I don't know if it's just that specimen or if that's characteristic across.
I think maybe that's why they got silver in the name. It's also dripping on me right now. But that's how it got silver in the name, because that's one of the nice qualities about it, that it's got so much nice silver venation on there.
Well, I like also how you said it's just like small and clump forming, but it's like if you have a lot of big leaves, oftentimes you need something to kind of fill in the gaps. You know, you have a big leaf here, a big leaf here. And that, that's partly what I love about peperomia too, because you could kind of stick them in and they just kind of fill in all the spaces in between. So that's a nice one, especially because anthuriums are like super hot right now and people do gravitate towards those larger leaves, but that one's a really unique one. Is that like a hybrid, or is it like, do you know?
As far as I know, it was something that Selby Botanical Gardens was growing, and that it was most likely a sport off of something. And it kind of was around years ago and then disappeared. And then a friend of mine that's a grower had them in his nursery, and he's been growing them for, I don't even know, 20 or 30 years. And it's kind of one of those plants that got lost.
Yeah.
And then he says, do you want any of these? And I'm like, oh my God, I haven't seen that thing in forever. So it was kind of cool to rediscover plants that you had and then haven't seen in years.
I think that's where, growers, especially in botanic gardens, kind of could come together and have unity, because sometimes they lose something at a botanic garden, for instance. I'm not saying that the, Selby Botanical Gardens lost that, but there is an opportunity where that happens. And then they had given it to some grower, and then you rediscover it again.
It's amazing. I always wonder, how much of the stuff that is in people's backyards still, because there's been things that I sold for years that I don't have anymore. And I wonder if anyone's still growing that. Is that gone forever? Or, did somebody, get one of those 15 years ago and they still have it growing somewhere?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, what's the next one?
These guys are getting kind of big on me here. See if I can fit it in the.
Oh yeah. That looks newly shined.
I know, it grows like that. Isn't it great?
So good.
That's it's Philodendron bernardo-pozzi.
Oh, that's one that I have seen in the trade. Not always that frequently, but usually there's like a big one out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I used to have this on a tree, and the leaves were amazing. I bet it had at least 3-foot leaves, and it was so shiny. And then when it bloomed, the inflorescence was amazing too, because the spathe was curled back like this big streamer. And I thought it was something that had fallen on the plant from above. I'm like, what is in there? And so, a lot of philodendrons don't have the showiest inflorescence, but that was really exciting to see that big old cape on the back of there. So
was there a characteristic color of it, or was it just like a kind of a whitish green?
White. The spathe was whitish, but then the edges were like hot pink too.
Ooh.
So it was just really, look like ribbons hanging off of the plant. That's why I was like, are there flowers, falling on it from something up above? So
is that a cutting of the mother plant that you had growing up a tree?
Yeah, this one is original from that. And I'm trying to think, I guess that was all from the same batch. This used to go by Philodendron superbum for years, and then the name was changed. It's pretty superb, though. Some of those names, when they change, you're like, oh, it was so good before.
So this one doesn't get any, the leaves don't really transform shape-wise, but just get larger.
When they're more juvenile, they're more narrow, and they do thick, they get a little wider as they get big. I've got some juvenile ones that have leaves like that. And I started seeing people online talking about narrow form and wider form. And I'm like, well, while there's probably they probably do vary. When they're juvenile, they are really narrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once they get big. And what's nice, just kind of like what you said, like it looks like it's been shined. It always looks like somebody came over there and leaf shined it. So that's really cool.
I know. I had Ryan from Steve's Leaves, show one of his thematophyllums that were like, it literally looked like he took a shoe shine and like shined.
Buffed it down.
Yeah, exactly.
They can't bring up dirt falling off of the leaves. And
all right, next one.
You know what? And this isn't an aeroid, but I love these guys anyway. These
is that a Dioscorea or something? No.
Piper.
It's a Piper.
It's variegated, and they make a great vine. I like the colors on them, and they're easy for me to grow. And
do you know what species of Piper that is, or is it just like one that was, what is it?
Nigrum.
Oh, Piper. So it's Piper nigrum. So it's an actual pepper.
Right.
Just happens to be variegated.
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
Yeah. Has it given you any pepper?
I'm generally cutting them, and I'm missing it, but I can't recall that I've ever gotten any. I've never harvested it, but I should do that.
Yeah. I mean, it would be kind of cool. I mean, I know I've seen some magazines with it on, but I'm like, that's never going to happen indoors. I've had a Piper nigrum indoors, and it lasted for maybe about like 6 to 7 months, and then I wasn't able to like sustain it.
Same with like vanilla orchids. Sometimes you see photos, you're like, did you just roll that in?
I know.
All over,
Did you just like buy that and like glue it on?
Wax flowers.
Yeah. That's interesting. It's beautiful.
And sometimes they've got like a half white leaf, or got a lot of white on them, so the leaves all vary. I just always don't know if that's showing in there.
Yeah, it is. And did you discover that kind of variegation on one of yours, or did you kind of bring it in, or?
No, it was something that somebody gave me years ago, and kind of was, sometimes when they're little, you go, oh, that's kind of cool. I should get one. And then when it grows up, you go, wow, that's really cool. I didn't really give that plant full credit. And people would ask me about it. And I thought, well, I should propagate it, because I would have all these rare Anthuriums, and this would be growing between them, and they'd be like, what's that? So
that is then, if you've had that for a while, that is then a stable variegation. Oh, yeah. That's not going anywhere.
I've had it at least 15 years. I've had it a long time.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Yeah. It's totally fine when you like go away from the aeroids. I found some really cool peperomias with you.
Oh yeah. I should have brought some in.
It's okay. It's okay.
A lot of times I get them and they don't have proper
IDs,
species names on them.
Yeah. Or they're like a little weed growing in with the rest of it. Yeah.
Oh, I've got prostrata just hanging down like curtains in the greenhouse right now. This guy, Philodendron alternans.
Ooh, very, very linear leaf. Is that more like a riparian based
climber? Yeah, wants to climb, and leaves they get longer. I've had them probably 2 feet or more, but they don't get any wider, so that's cool. Again, it's like probably more than anybody else, once you've just got hundreds of plants in your house, you need some different leaf shapes, and you need your plants you need narrow, you need small, you need round, just so you don't have a massive heart-shaped green leaves,
Yeah, I mean, it's the same with landscaping outside, right? You want to have different flowers, you want to have different leaves. Yeah, totally.
I do that. One particular area I am a lot is over by the pool deck right outside the door, because the dogs are in the pool all day. So I'm over there. There's this area, and I'm like, well, I need a big leaf there because there's a lot of small leaves. So I'll be sitting there throwing the ball, but at the same time, I'm like, when I get up, I'm going to go take one of those giganteas and put it over there that needs a round leaf or something like that,
Have you ever seen this one growing in the wild at all?
I haven't seen it growing in the wild, but I have it on a tree.
Mm-hmm.
It's, kind of close.
I'm just always curious, like what selects for a really thin leaf versus one that's much wider and bigger, especially because when I think of like, some anthuriums that have really thin strap-like leaves, sometimes they're more riparian based, kind of thing, or like things with strap-like leaves. I see them more riparian. And then this one, if it's still growing up a tree, what really benefits the fact that it's like really thin leaf? Is it in like a very like windy area, for instance, where it would get tattered? Those are things that like I would be curious about. Right.
I know we might have talked about that with monstera holes and stuff like that in the past. Like, is that a wind thing? Is that something so that maybe insects might think, oh, somebody's already colonized this, I don't want to be over here. So that's always been an interesting thought. Like, how do plants decide to have a certain shaped leaf? But some of them, they want to, I noticed that some of the plants, maybe like a bird's nest anthurium, come from areas that are drier, and that's like a funnel. So if it rains, all the water is just like sliding right down, and heart-shaped leaves, that pointy end, that water just runs over the tip. They're probably coming from maybe a little wetter area where they've got all the water they want, and they don't want to sit there soaking wet all the time. So that actually brings me to the topic of, because I remember when I was just touring through the Missouri Botanic Gardens in their Royd collection, I was like, how come some more of these bird's nest anthuriums don't make it into the trade? Because of the fact that you don't have to be watering them all the time, that they're not so like, oh, give me humidity, shower me with like spray and everything along those lines. Because I think there's some really great bird's nest anthuriums that could make it into the commercial trade. I wonder you used to see a lot of Anthurium superbum years ago.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it's because of the shape, it makes it difficult, because if you are successful with them, some of them get really big, and they've got, like, I'll have one on something on my bench, and it has a 4 or 5 foot spread on it. And like, that's my whole bench. I need some space. So I wonder if it could be a size issue.
Size issue.
Really take up room.
Yeah, perhaps. All right. Is there any more?
Yeah.
Have your next?
Oh, look, I put some of them back over here.
They're getting your computer wet.
I watered them all before.
Is that like a tortum?
Yeah.
Oh, so nice. I love watching that one unfurl. It looks like this, like, kind of twisted dancer kind of unfurling.
And it's just, again, this is another one. I was trying to bring all different leaf shapes in, but just another one that, heart-shaped leaves are everywhere, but it's just so cool and it just gets more kind of fern-like the more mature it gets. And when they're juvenile, they're very nice, but like a mature plant that's got a 18-inch, 2-foot leaf or so, just looks like lace, and they're just beautiful. So I always really like these guys. I like the shape of the leaf.
Since you've been in the trade for quite some time, what were some plants that maybe surprised you that came back in style, for instance, or that was like easy to find and now it's more difficult to find, or something of that nature, something that surprised you?
I'm probably like Philodendron gloriosum was one that was like landscape plant. They were $5 for a full 3-gallon. They were everywhere, and they became so popular for a while. And then now I see people are growing them again. They got so popular, everybody was like, whoa, we got to make some more of these. So I do see them getting grown a little more. And like for me in South Florida, I can have them in the ground. So they're good for landscaping too down here. So Florida growers grow them for landscapers. And then, for years I would go get them and divide them out and pop them into, make more plants with them. So it's cool to see things getting grown again that kind of disappeared.
Well, let's see if it gets down to $5.99 again.
Yeah. I'm not even sure what they're at right now. I
think they're like $69.99. And I actually don't physically know, but somebody had brought it up the other day and they're like, yeah, they're like $50, $60. And I was like, Ah.
I can't keep up because I'll go to like do some research to kind of get an idea, and there'll be a listing on Etsy. It'll be like $20, $2,000, and you're like, what? One of you is confused.
Yeah, the Gloriosum is a good one, especially because it is coming back in trade. Anything else that you could think of?
Coming back that had disappeared. Well, that's one of the things I got to say I do like about this plant craze is that it got so many people kind of growing aroids again. It didn't seem like there was a lot of people doing it, and all of a sudden it was kind of like hey, wait, let's grow some plants. Gosh, what else has disappeared? And there's things I had hoped that would come back that I don't see anymore, like maybe something I lost that I used to be able to just run out and go pick up another one,
Yeah. Well, what about some of the ones, because you tell me a little more about your book that you actually just kind of released, and maybe there's something in there that you want to highlight that you think is like such a good, reliable plant that is timeless. We got the book plug in. We're twinning. You highlighted a lot of goodies in there, so.
Yes. And that was another one, like kind of like this, where it had to be plants that I had on the property. So there's all kinds of stuff. I would have liked to include more rare succulents and more just really super amazing stuff that botanical gardens have. But it wasn't like we could go travel, we're doing in the middle of COVID. It wasn't like we could just jump on a plane and go highlight some just amazing succulents, or I don't have any Hoyas or anything like that. So they kind of had to be here. But it was a lot of fun.
Lucky for you though, because a lot of what you featured in here is obvious aroids, and that is what people are really, really love right now. I mean, yes, they love Hoyas and succulents as well, but this is a grouping of plants that people are really excited about at this moment in time.
Right. And plus that's what I know. So I don't want to start trying to talk about plants that I don't know anything about. So why embarrass myself? But it was a really cool thing to do. And it was nice to, write about things that I feel aren't always touched.
I think people have also gotten a lot more sophisticated growing indoors as well. Like in many of the houseplant home tours that I see, they have vivariums or these kind of glass containers that they were at one point, they were just like a glass shelf, but they've turned it into a place where they could have a humidifier and grow their plants. There's some folks who have like literally built like greenhouses indoors.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because I think at the beginning it was just people just buying things and like plunking them on a counter because that's where they wanted it. And now it's like, I've seen photos on Instagram that I'm like, that's better than my greenhouses. And this is in a bedroom. They have just created such a great environment for the plants indoors that it's just gorgeous. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like fine tuning everything for the plant's needs, which I think is so amazing. And I'm always thinking, now that I'm kind of moving between two places, I'm kind of like, I hope that's easily removable. I had to take my green wall down and I'm like, oh man, it's so many moving parts.
Is it like panels?
It is. It's like panels, but then it's just like removing each of the individual plants within their like little pots and then stuff like that. So it's not that bad, but it ends up being a lot of biomass and a lot of things at the end of the day. It looks like not a lot because it's all on like a vertical plane, but then when you actually take it down and put it on a horizontal surface, you're just like, that's just taking up a lot of room.
Absolutely. I've done that with moving plants for hurricanes or cold, and you go, that was that one bench, it takes up the entire house.
Oh, well, do you have any else, or is that your list?
You know what I brought in, just because he was looking so shiny, this big Jose Buono.
Oh, that is one that I've seen in a lot of houseplant collections.
It just grows so easy. It's got variegation on it, so it's a little different than your, a regular green leaf. And it's just, there's so many rare houseplants that need special this or that, and all these guys are pretty much something that you don't you don't see at Home Depot, but they also won't give you a hard time.
I've never seen a pure green one of that. Is it only always variegated?
I've never had one revert.
Yeah.
And it must be, I've actually put these on trees and not had them revert. And most variegated stuff I put in the ground goes green on me. So
yeah, I don't think I've ever like seen one green, or if I did, I probably didn't recognize it because
it wasn't variegated.
Yeah, because it's like one of those things that has a leaf that you could easily pass over if it was just green. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. So even though it's quite sizable, I do wonder if like the green version actually is much larger than the variegated version at some point, but it's kind of like the, I'm thinking of a Hoya right now. It's very hard to find it in just plain green. It always has like the white edging. Oh, I'm just completely blank. It's a very common one. I'm completely blanking on the name, but I very rarely ever see it in its dark green version. I only ever see it with like the white on the edging. And it's not an expensive Hoya because it's actually quite common. And I'm just like, geez, I never see anybody growing the green one. And I would actually want the green one because the green one now has become like, more rare than the one with the white edging. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what happens. Everybody will concentrate on the rare one. And then you're like, what was that other one? It was a darker green. It's sometimes we decide a certain thing is rare, but like there's a nicer form. It's just not as, it's not.
Yeah. And actually there's in the place where I go, the hair salon that I often go to for a haircut or whatnot, they have a gorgeous Ficus elastica, and it's just this beautiful emerald green. And you don't often see that emerald green one. You see the one that's like a darker one. You see the burgundy, you see the different kind of pink variegated one. And it's very rare when you see that like beautiful dark green emerald color. And I'm like, oh, that's such a beautiful plant. And I never see it actually in the stores. And it could be in there because I haven't been really shopping recently, but like over the years, it's very rare to actually find one of those. And I've seen it in like, I think I went to Ott's greenhouse and they had one like growing in the ground. So you could tell like at one point, probably during the 70s or 80s, like it did exist.
Right. And that's what was available at that time. And they just kept this one alive.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is just really wonderful. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate your like outlook on some of the things that you're seeing that you think are interesting for folks to have in their collection. And yeah, if anyone wants to go out, welcome to the jungle, Enid's new book. And actually, this is your first book, right?
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. Well, congratulations on that. It's really awesome. The subtitle, Rare Tropical Houseplants to Collect, Grow, and Love.